Good evening. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Berkeley Heights, New Providence, and Summit, I'm pleased to welcome you to the Summit Common Council virtual debate. My name is Marlene Sincaglia. I'm a resident of Berkeley Heights, and I will be your host and moderator for this evening. The League of Women Voters of New Jersey is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. Empowering voters, defending democracy is our message. Elections and voting are core concerns for the League of Women Voters. We are committed to providing fact-based information about issues and position candidates take on those issues to help voters make their own decisions and participate in the electoral process. We envision a democracy where everyone has the right, the knowledge, the confidence, and the opportunity to participate. The League of Women Voters never supports or opposes candidates for political office or political parties. Any use of the League's name or footage from this forum in campaign materials or advertising of any kind, including web, social media, cable, or television, is not authorized by the League of Women Voters. Due to our nonpartisan position, residents should view this recording in its entirety. Membership of the League is open to people 16 or older of all gender identities. With 100 years of experience, the League is one of America's oldest and most trusted civic nonprofit organizations. We encourage everyone to go to vote411.org, a one-stop site for information on all aspects of voting in New Jersey, with information about all the candidates up and down the ballot. And the candidates for the Summit Common Council have been invited to participate in Vote 411, and they have done so. This forum is being live streamed and recorded. Will be available on LWV-BHNPS.org and through our YouTube channel at that address. At this time, I'd like to introduce our timekeeper, Marnita Robertson of Fort Lee. As the timekeeper, she will let you know where you stand on your answers. She will put up a yellow paper when you have 30 seconds left on your time, and she will put up the red paper when your time is up. So sort of keep track of where she is and what she's doing, and I will also do that. I will let you complete your thought, so don't worry if your thought isn't completed. One of the things we are doing is we're dealing with the issues that come before the Summit Common Council. Those things that are voted on by the council, those are the things that are most important. And when we answer the questions, we want to get your views in your positions on the issues. Okay, so this program has several parts to it. The first part will be opening statements. Each candidate will be, and I'll introduce them as they get ready to speak. We'll have 90 seconds to present an opening. The first candidate we will hear from is Mrs. Lisa Allen. She is a candidate for Ward 2, the unexpired term. This will be your opportunity to hear her, as she will not be participating in the rest of the program since she is running unopposed. And based on our lead position, if you're running unopposed, there's no debate there. So Mrs. Allen, unmute yourself and begin. You'll have 90 seconds.
Thank you, Marlene. And thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting tonight. Thank you to our audience for watching and engaging with the issues this campaign season. And most importantly, I'd like to thank my incredible family for their continuous support. My name is Lisa Allen, and I've had the privilege of serving as your council representative this past year. While I'm unopposed, I'm still humbly asking for your vote. I've been married almost 20 years, and I've spent 12 of those happy years living in our extraordinary town. Someone once said to me, the days are long, but the years are short. And as I sit up here tonight, that couldn't be more true. When we moved here, our 2 boys were in preschool, and today we have a freshman and a junior at the high school. My background is in HR. I previously worked for JP Morgan Chase, but like many women, I decided to leave the workforce to raise my children. As my kids started Franklin, I started my new career as a volunteer. I immediately jumped into organizing numerous activities for the PTO and recently, I finished my term as co-PTO president at the high school. I've also served on 2 local nonprofit boards, the Summit Parkline, as well as the HTTV as a board of trustee. And you may have seen me where I've hosted interviews with civic and business leaders, which has given me a unique opportunity to build relationships across the city. I also work full-time in the state assembly office, and I'm focused on helping constituents resolve their issues, which is a very similar role to what council does. My commitment is to you. It is always to focus on safe neighborhoods, a vibrant downtown, and to serve the public's interest through trust, transparency, and honesty. If you'd like to get to know me, please visit my website. I want to thank you, and I wish everyone a very good luck tonight.
Thank
you,
you.
Marlene.
Thank you. Okay. The next candidate is Mr. David Fosgate, and he's running for Ward 2, seat for Ward 2.
Good evening. My name is David Fosgate, and I'm the Ward 2 candidate for Summit Common Council. My wife, Jenny, and I have 3 wonderful daughters, Harper, Dory, and Elsie, so I'm extremely appreciative that the League of Women Voters is hosting tonight's forum. I'd also like to thank my fellow candidates for being willing to share their time and talents for making Summit what it is, a great community in which to live. My family's blessed to have lived here for the last 6 years, having moved back to my wife's childhood hometown. She grew up here, graduated from Summit High School, and our daughters have followed in their mother's footsteps, attending those same Summit public schools. I first ate at the Summit Diner 20 years ago when we were visiting, and I still order the corned beef hash and eggs. My children stay busy on the local athletic fields and in gymnasiums around town, and my wife and I volunteer on boards or as coaches for those same Summit sports clubs. I'm privileged to be an elder at Central Presbyterian Church and co-chair the Personnel and Administrative Services Committee, working with our great church staff to ensure it's well run. I've spent 25 years working in investment banking, corporate finance for 2 Fortune 500 companies, and most recently employee benefits consulting. The common denominator for my career has been showing up, figuring things out, and working with teams to create value where none previously existed. All skills readily transferable to municipal government. Having lived in big cities most of my life, I couldn't be happier to call our small town home and be part of a tight-knit community that welcomed us with open arms. I promise to work to maintain the quality of life we all enjoy for our well-being, and I thank all of you for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Our next candidate is Ms. Beth Little, and she is running for member at large.
Thank you. I'm Beth Little, and I'm running for re-election for council member at large. Over the last 4 years on council, we've accomplished a lot for Summit, and I'm asking for your support to keep working on the issues and initiatives that will help lead Summit into the future. At times over the last 4 years, I've been asked about why I want to be on council. You know, after all, it's a pretty significant commitment. It's a lot of unpaid hours, particularly over the last few years. And in this age of social media, it can seem thankless, although it's very rewarding. And the short answer is that I love this town and the people that live here. I moved to Summit with my family almost 20 years ago. And since that time, I've dedicated my time to Summit organizations, school PTOs, sports teams, Santa Claus Shop, the Connections, Summit Education Foundation, and now Summit Council. I've taken that dedication into every single decision I've made over the last 4 years, carefully considering the options and making choices that I believe will best help my neighbors across the city. So I'm hoping you'll allow me to continue that work, especially on some of the important ongoing projects that we're working on, bringing Summit out of the pandemic, overseeing the new firehouse construction, and shepherding the Broad Street West redevelopment project to a finish line. I'm looking forward to talking about a lot of these issues tonight and hopefully earning your support for re-election. Thank you, and good luck to everyone tonight.
Thank you. Okay, our next candidate is Mr. Andy Miniger, and he is running for Ward 1.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this, and to Marlene for moderating, and Marnita for keeping time. My name is Andy Miniger. I'm running for Ward 1 seat on council, Summit Council. My wife, Sarah, and I have lived in Summit for 9 years. We love this city, the character of the downtown, the walkability, the quality of life here. I want Summit's future to be strong. So I want to do what I can to help our city choose the path forward. That's why I'm running. I bring a fresh perspective and a broad set of skills and experiences to benefit Summit both today and tomorrow. For over a decade, I've been a higher education administrator. A university is like a small city. And in my role in university technology, I collaborate on projects with public safety, housing, parking services, health services, and I work on infrastructure projects. I have real world, hands-on experience that can be useful to the city and its residents. And in my experience is also broad. It's not narrowly tailored to any one aspect of the city, it's broad. In the past 15 years, I've helped create and implement strategic plans for 2 universities, which is also looking ahead at goals for the future. Strategic long-term planning is critical for any city. And by year end, I will have my master's degree in public administration. An MPA produces nonprofit and city leaders. I know how organizations can be successful, and I want to bring that knowledge to our city. I've knocked on over 1,500 doors in Ward 1 so far, and I've met hundreds of neighbors. I've listened closely to what they love about Summit, what they're concerned about, and I take their ideas seriously. If given the opportunity, I will proudly represent Summit on Common Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Our next candidate is Mr. Stephen Spur, who is running for member at large.
Thank you, Marlene. Good evening. I'm Steve Spur, candidate for Summit Council at large. 11 years ago, I bought my first home in Summit. Not long thereafter, my wife, Melissa, and I were married in the mayor's office at City Hall. We've since welcomed 2 daughters to our family. Our oldest just started kindergarten this year. We love this community, and because Summit is home, we are committed to do whatever we can to make it even better. Joining in that effort are 3 people I personally admire and who have served our community with distinction. Those are my running mates, of course, Bob Weck, David Fosgate, and Councilwoman Lisa Allen. Together, we put our names forward to help tackle 3 pressing local priorities. First, put the Summit community ahead of partisan politics. We do ourselves a tremendous disservice when we judge those around us by their party affiliation alone. It's time to pull our focus away from these artificial distinctions on the local level and back to Summit. Second, we are committed to preserving our small town charm, starting with the Broad Street West redevelopment project. This project desperately needs greater community engagement, so the end result complements rather than competes with our existing downtown. And finally, we will partner with public safety agencies to help keep our neighborhoods safe. Our police department, fire department, and volunteer first aid squad do tremendous work day in and day out. And if elected to council, we will work closely together every step of the way. So bottom line, we can do even better for Summit. We can build greater trust and confidence in local government, not by attacking one another when disagreement inevitably arises, but rather by demonstrating a more collaborative path forward for our community. Over the coming weeks, we look forward to hearing from you, and by Tuesday, November 2nd, earning your trust, confidence, and vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next candidate is Mr. Greg Bartan, who is a candidate for Ward 2.
Thank you. First and foremost, thank you to the League of Women Voters for giving us this opportunity. I've knocked on more than 2,500 doors so far, and I've had thousands of conversations with neighbors. It's abundantly clear to me that we need leaders for today and for tomorrow. I'm one such leader, and I'm asking for your vote again because I love this city. I'm incredibly proud of our progress, and I believe there's lots more work to be done. Our council faced the pandemic head on and took dozens of actions to help residents and businesses survive, recover, and thrive. We opened Maple Street and parklets for outdoor dining, created the vaccine clinic in partnership with Atlantic Health, and opened the farmers market. But even before that, we've worked hard to budget responsibly, enhance traffic and pedestrian safety, and do our part to protect the environment. Looking forward, to me, the work now falls into 3 categories. First, post-pandemic planning. Continue to marshal our resources responsibly, keep Maple Street open for business, and keep the vaccine clinic open for boosters. Second, good government. Keep passing budgets like this year's, when we've seen a tax decrease. Build a new firehouse, continue adding sidewalks and stop signs, and giving our first responders the tools that they need to be successful. And third, expanding affordability. This means moving forward with the Broad Street West redevelopment to expand our tax base, meet our affordable housing obligation, and complement our downtown. I'm so thrilled to be here to answer questions and to have a substantive discussion about these incredibly important topics. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and the last candidate we're hearing from is Mr. Robert Weck, and he's running for Ward 1.
Thank you, Marlene. My name is Bob Weck, and I'm running for the Ward 1 council seat. I've been looking forward to tonight's event. It's incredibly important for our Summit community to hear from all of the candidates, and I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for giving us this opportunity. As a career member of the Summit Police Department, this community and I have invested a lot in each other over the past 30 years. I was appointed Chief of Police by former Mayor Jordan Glatt in 2011, and I served for 9 years in that capacity. During that period, I managed a $6 million plus budget and more than 55 full-time employees. My department created initiatives that increased outreach, youth programs, and community policing, all leading to lower crime rates and better traffic safety. I know every street, every block, and I feel blessed to know so many of our residents and business owners. Over the years, I have been an active member of numerous local boards, and I have forged strong relationships that reach every corner of this city. I know I've already proven myself as a Summit leader, and I'm hoping you'll give me that opportunity once again this fall with your vote. It would be my honor to serve this community on Common Council and give back to the city I so love, and I know so well. I have always, and I always will, do what's best for Summit. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we move to the second portion of the program, which were questions that were generated from the residents of Summit. These questions were screened so they would not be redundant. They weren't personal attacks, and they dealt with the issues that come before the Summit Common Council. Again, the candidates will have 1 minute to respond to the question. At 30 seconds, you will see the yellow paper. At 60 seconds, you will see the red paper. Please complete your thought. When everybody is finished answering the question, I don't think there's really going to be a need for rebuttal here because everybody's going to be answering the question. So there shouldn't be a need for rebuttal for the questions where you will answer. So the first question, and Ms. Little, you're going to go first. 60 seconds, is Summit is in the process of embarking on a redevelopment project called Broad Street West redevelopment. As a council person, how would you drive the project and incorporate the residents' opinions?
Thank you for the question. So I'm already doing that, actually. I sit on the steering committee for Broad Street West redevelopment. I've been working on that throughout the pandemic. I'm spending a lot of time on that. And I've been involved on the redevelopment committee throughout the project throughout my time on council. So we have already been engaging with the public a lot. The whole project is really an engagement with the community because we knew that we had these properties and we could have either sold them to a developer and let the developer do what they wanted with the properties, or we could engage the public by declaring the area an area of need of redevelopment and reaching out to the community to see what they wanted to see in this project. And that's what we did through lots of public listening sessions, and as well as specifically reaching out to different stakeholders in the area, everyone from SDI businesses downtown to the churches to even high school students that we went and talked to really figure out exactly what the community wanted to see and develop a plan and then shop it to the developers so that we get exactly in that area what Summit neighbors want to see in that area. And so that's exactly what we've been doing.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Spur, same question.
Sure. So I do applaud numerous councils, Republican-led as well as Democratic-led, for facilitating conversations on Broad Street West redevelopment dating back 2015, 2016, arguably, with the master plan revision. What I think is important to note, though, and where there's tremendous room for improvement, is continuing those conversations. They can't be one-off conversations. They need to occur regularly with a diversity of stakeholders. I've heard from downtown business owners and even door knocking, just residents in town, a good 2/3 of the folks from the thousands of doors that I've knocked across the community. There's a general lack of awareness of how Broad Street West is coming together and how they can meaningfully submit their feedback and their input. So at the conclusion of this project, which is still likely years away, it's something that the community can celebrate, something that complements our existing downtown and doesn't compete with it. So I think there's room to be had for sure in terms of getting a greater diversity of voices involved with greater frequency. The one meeting so far this year was back in May. There was a planned meeting in September, and last we heard, it's now punted to October. So definitely some room for improvement there.
Thank you. Mr. Miniger.
Thank you. My answer will be pretty short. This will be, as we go further down the line, I think the answers will get shorter, but so there were definitely updates by council. There was a YouTube presentation that was quite interesting, informative. The website has information on this. There's definitely room for continued updates from council on, say, social media. This is easily done. This is something that can easily be done. It's important to keep in mind, though, that one of the reasons that this even exists is because of public feedback. So I think the city is doing a good job. I think it can be expanded a little bit on social media and elsewhere.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Weck.
Thank you. Any redevelopment is intriguing and good for a community, but it's something that affects everyone, our residents and visitors alike. So I really think we have to have an ongoing and active engagement from the public, like the other candidates stated earlier. But many times while speaking with residents, while walking downtown or knocking on doors, a lot of them weren't fully aware of the project. They heard the word, Broad Street West, redevelopment, but they really didn't know about the sub-districts and some other parts of the project. So remember, this started several years ago, and what was wanted by the previous stakeholders in Summit might not be what the current stakeholders want. So I think we really need to engage them. I would like to see a one place, one platform where all the plans, views, opinions, it could all be discussed instead of, a little bit on Facebook, a little bit on, the City Hall site. I think that would really be effective for everyone, because I think educating our residents of the project through public meetings, mailings, and other social media will really ensure that we're going to get it right the first time.
Thank you. Mr. Vartan.
Thank you very much. First, I think we should back up for a second and think about, again, why we're doing this project to begin with, right? So 80% of our taxes come from residential properties right now. 20% comes from commercial properties. We have to grow that tax base because the cost of government keeps going up, and we don't want to put that pressure on our residential properties. The second thing is we have an agreement with Fair Share Housing to build a certain number of affordable units. And then our downtown right now is 70% residential and commercial. How do we keep that vibrant in the long term? The way that you do that is you redevelop the land that's close by, that's already owned by the city, partially, mostly. And what you do from there is you go through this process that we've been going through in the last 5 years. And I think it's perfectly reasonable to say there has not been a lot shared about this year. And that's largely because we're in the process of negotiating with these developers, and we can't be going back and forth in the public about what those negotiations are, but we will have a meeting, and it will be within the next month or so. And I'm really looking forward to going over with the public what those plans will look like. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Fosgate.
Yes, thank you for asking this important question. I think it is a worthy project for doing just that, increasing ratables and helping us fulfill our obligation to affordable housing. But again, echoing my running mates, as I knock on doors around town, anecdotally, 9 out of 10 residents look at me like a deer in headlights when I even mention Broad Street West. I'm also concerned that the developers in the virtual public hearing back in May called it its own neighborhood. I mean, that's like building or dropping a new subdivision in town. So, the things that concern me is this has been going on for a long time, and it was built and imagined in a different world, a pre-COVID world. This pandemic has caused our paradigm to shift, and we need to be asking the tough questions and soliciting those questions and giving those answers back to the public, because we have new, lifestyles, we have new work-life habits, we have new commuting patterns. Parking in itself is a declining trend over time for technology and autonomous vehicles that are coming our way. So who's asking those tough questions? And its signature feature right now is a 6-story concrete parking deck in the middle of town. So again, I think we need to reimagine this, and I'm glad council has paused lately to focus only on one sub-district and afford us time to re-engage the community on this project.
Thank you.
So can I do a quick rebuttal?
Okay, 30 seconds. So at the end of 30 seconds, you'll see the red.
Thank you. I just want to give a rebuttal to the fact that there hasn't been ongoing engagement with the public. We're continually meeting with stakeholders. We're meeting with the library board, we're meeting with the Y, we're meeting with the downtown businesses. There's constant engagement that we just had another parking consultant. And the steering committee itself is made of different stakeholders from the community, both council, we have members from the planning board, we have residents who have expertise in this area. All these stakeholders are continually involved. So this notion that we made this plan 5 years ago and it's over is just not true. There's continued involvement and stakeholders, and it's going to be continued communication about what we're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Question number 2 is going to go to the candidates for Ward 2. Although, as I mentioned, after they finish, if anybody wants 30 seconds to say their position, that would be fine as well. So question number 2 for Ward 2 candidates reads, should Summit change to an elected Board of Education? Why not? And Mr. Vartan, you get to go first.
I think that's an interesting question that's not entirely up to this council. Right now, we're designated a type 1 school district by the state of New Jersey. So therefore, the mayor appoints the entire school board. That has positives and negatives like anything. I think, part of what's a benefit to that is that the school board doesn't have to worry about partisan elections, right? They don't have to worry about the winds of change blowing in and then they're out of a job, right? But at the same time, this is 50% of our tax bill, and it's the main reason why people move to Summit, and it's what keeps our property values high. So we as elected officials do have to do our job to make sure that they are held accountable. And we do that through the Board of School Estimate when we approve their budget. So the answer is yes and no.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Fosgate.
I do echo Greg's sentiment in that, it falls out of the purview of council, but at the same time, council, does have certification and oversight over that Board of School Estimate budget. I have come from, towns where there was an elected school board, and yes, to say that there were, some tough fights and hostile elections, that is true. I like maintaining the fabric of this community. We're not always going to get it right, but right now I think, an appointed school board of whom I know many people on this board are serving us well. My children are a product, or one of them is, having just graduated of Summit Public Schools, and 2 others in it right now. So again, right now, I think, from my point of view, as we exist in the status quo is fine for me and my family.
Thank you. Is there anyone who hasn't spoken that wishes to have 30 seconds to give their opinion about should Summit have an elected school board or not? Okay, seeing nobody, then we move to the next question, which is going to go to the Ward 1 candidates. And that question is, what is your position on the city ordinances banning some plastics? And Mr. Miniger, you're going first.
Thank you. I think it was a good idea. When I think about plastics, I think about plastic bags. I think about thin plastic bags sitting in trees and in gutters. Many of the people on this call right now will know that when we clean up downtown on occasion as a bipartisan group, we see stuff like that on occasion in the drains, sitting underneath bushes. So I think it's fantastic that plastic bags in particular are not included in Summit anymore.
Thank you. Mr. Weck.
I'm going to have to echo, Andy's opinion as well. I do think it's very good for Summit and for the environment. You always read about plastics that are getting into our oceans and our streams and causing problems with our wildlife. And so I think that is good. I think there was a lot of engagement, and I on this one topic, I think you saw a lot from the younger generation, which it was great to see them engaged. But I'd also like us to keep looking at different environmental things that we could do. Obviously one would be, getting, more cars off the roadway. I'd love to see maybe a bike sharing program set up in Summit, which I think would be great for Summit and for the environment, and have different hubs throughout Summit. How great would it be if you lived near Memorial Field, you jumped on a bike and you rode it to the Summit train station. And then, once you get back from Manhattan, you do vice versa and you go home. And that's one less car that's on the roadway and parking downtown. So I think all of that goes together. And I think the ban on plastics was a great start to helping our environment over the years.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody wish to make a 30-second comment? Okay. Moving along to question number 4. This question is for the at-large candidates. And the question reads, what would you do to improve the environment for our businesses as we emerge from the pandemic? We know that Summit did a lot during the pandemic, but what would you do going forward to improve the environment for the businesses in Summit? And Mr. Spur, you get to go first.
Thank you, Marlene. I think this is a good reminder to us all that there's no silver bullet for a vibrant downtown, for the success, the diversity of businesses that we have. But a reminder in that when government's doing its job and stepping out of the way to let private industry flourish, we can expect a vibrant community. So I want to continue to see tax rates under control, our police, fire, volunteer first aid squad doing what they do to keep us safe, and just generally delivering the high standard of city services that both residents and business owners expect. So I don't think there's one silver bullet to continue to welcome the next coffee shop or the next pizzeria into town. But what we can be doing best in City Hall as a member of Common Council supporting the city administration is making sure in our respective departments we're delivering great value to Summit taxpayers, be them commercial or residential. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Little.
Well, Steve, with all due respect, I think a lot of our businesses in downtown are very happy that the government didn't step out of the way and let them do their own thing during the pandemic, because I think we put a lot of measures in place that saved a lot of our businesses and really helped our downtown survive. We have a 97% occupancy rate right now in Summit downtown, which is just really unheard of, especially coming out of the pandemic. We have a very healthy and vibrant downtown, I think in large part due to the measures that the government and our council took during the pandemic and will continue to take to support our downtown. We've talked a lot about closing Maple Street, but we were the first municipality that applied to the state to be able to close it for more than a 48-hour period, for a continued period, because we heard from our restaurants. They came to us and said, we need this. And we fought for it with the governor, and we were the first municipality to be able to do that. We expanded the parklet programs. We supported the funds that supported the downtown, and we promoted those. And we will continue to support our downtown. And you heard that part of this redevelopment project is really an effort to support the downtown as well, because bringing residents into the downtown who live there mean that they eat, they shop, they use the downtown, and that really supports it. So we're going to be doing everything we can. We are not going to be stepping out of the way. We're going to do everything in our power to support our downtown and make sure that it continues to thrive and grow.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody wish to rebut?
A brief rebuttal.
Okay, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think just to round out the conversation, we're of course grateful for the initiatives that city government undertook, really all levels of government throughout the pandemic that still is with us. I'd also want to call attention to the tremendous efforts of nonprofits in the community, and the Summit Foundation, especially for what they did to raise private funds to provide rental assistance and other financial assistance to small businesses in our community. So there's no one actor, I believe, that's going to be responsible for the success or failure of our downtown, but we together as a diversity of voices, private residents, businesses, nonprofits are really need to pull together to ensure the continued success of our community. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, seeing nobody else, we move to the next question, which is going to be for Ward 2 candidates. And the question deals with engaging residents. Do you think there are areas of improvement where the city should be utilizing technology to gather public input to drive decision-making? And Mr. Fosgate, you go first.
Absolutely, I do. I work with technology companies and venture-backed startups, and here we are on Zoom having a League of Women Voters Forum this evening. I know there's, a vocal constituency in town that's pushing for, say, for instance, hybrid council meetings. I, don't know why we can't look into that. And I know council's been trying, but I mean, I've heard at times in council meetings, maybe a hesitation or resistance for doing so based on, Open Meetings Acts and other things for which, those can be revisited or looked into more deeply. Something that's big in the industry with the companies with whom I work are pulse surveys. Companies, again, leading edge technology companies, quarterly checking in very easily and conveniently with such tools as something as simple as SurveyMonkey to Culture Amp and other tools. We might even deploy those, citywide and gather feedback and engagement from residents in a way that helps us collectively stay in touch with them and maybe even be used for such projects such as Broad Street West and other occurrences. So absolutely, we live in a tech forward world and need to have tech forward thinking. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vartan.
Well, thank you. I think this is a great question. I think there's always ways to improve and use technology to make our city government run better. I think what people typically don't know about are the ways that you can already get notifications from the city. And I think that is partially due to the fact that we just don't talk about it enough. I think, I'll use this forum now to say, go sign up for notifications from the city, right? But I think it's very disingenuous to say that this council's not trying to make hybrid meetings work. I think this is absolutely a priority for this council. I have always said that more public involvement in government makes it run better, right? So the system in City Hall right now was set up for people being in the room and people watching on hometown TV. And that was 15 years ago. So there's ways to improve that system. It's going to cost money. It's going to take a little bit more time than we wanted, but that's how basically everything works in government, right? So us in the private sector want things to move faster. And that is what we are going to continue to do to work on to make sure that we do get to a point where we can have these hybrid meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Next question goes to our at-large candidates. And the question asks, are you in favor or opposed to a ban on gas leaf blowers for the summer of 2022? And Ms. Little, you get to answer that first.
I'm happy to answer that. I've been discussing a lot about gas-powered leaf blowers over the last year. The ban came out of my committee, and it's a perfect example of what we do on council. We are a representative government for all of Summit. And this was an issue where we had people coming to council asking us to please do something about this. And then we had another group of residents asking us not to do anything about it. And we took a very difficult issue and we broke it down. We did a lot of research. We talked to different stakeholders. We purposely invited people that we knew didn't want the ban into our ad hoc committee, along with people who did, and really hashed out these issues to try to find a way to balance two competing issues and make a decision that was best for Summit. We came up with a very narrow ban that was a trial period of 3 months, and that had an exception policy that could be applied to businesses. And then we're going to reevaluate and see how it went. And then we're going to make a decision. So I'm not going to tell you whether I'm opposed or for it yet, because I don't know. I want to look at the data that came out of the pilot program, and I want to hear the feedback from all the stakeholders in Summit, and then I'm going to make my decision the same way I make every decision, thoughtfully and carefully, and taking into needs all the neighbors in Summit and how it affects everyone.
Thank you. Mr. Spur.
What I'll stand resolutely against is a type of process, deliberative process that divides the community rather than unites our community around an issue that really shouldn't have been as contentious as it was. Who's opposed to a quieter community, a better environment? No one that certainly I spoke to about the gas-powered leaf blower ban. But what we saw really was a contentious process, something that over at least a 3-year period had been slowly and steadily developed behind closed doors through yet another ad hoc committee, and then kind of dropped on the laps of the public, and especially landscapers among us, commercial businesses in our community in the midst of a pandemic. So the process was just downright terrible, downright disruptive to the function of government, and I think the fabric of our community. And really, if anything, represented some real mixed priorities on the part of council. So if and when the council chooses to re-examine this in 2022, I hope first and foremost, we put together a much more structured, much more collaborative process that brings together the diversity of perspectives on it and ends up satisfying a real need that I think the Summit has to improve its environment, but not at the expense of the community and the fabric of our community that we so cherish. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to give a brief rebuttal again.
Okay.
I'm going to take issue with a few things. First of all, not a 3-year period. We started looking this in the spring of 2020, and it was a completely transparent process. Apparently, Mr. Spurs is not aware of how the city government process works because it was openly discussed at every council meeting, and we discussed it openly with public involvement and we told the community what we were doing every step of the way. And then we brought those findings forward, and we had public engagement. We had more engagement on this issue than any other issue in the last 2 years, which included the pandemic, marijuana, everything else. We patiently listened to every single resident that came to us and expressed an opinion and took their opinions into account. A lot of the things that came out of the public opinion led to the exemption policy, for example. So this was a transparent policy. The contention didn't come from council, it came from the community, which was very evenly divided on this issue, and we had to make some tough decisions. And that's what we did.
Thank you. Thank you.
Marlene, may I just make a quick rebuttal as well?
Okay. Since
Thank
we
you.
we do have some time, so yes, okay,
Of course.
30
Thank
seconds,
you.
30 seconds.
I think, yeah, I think the best example of why the gas powered leaf blower process, and again, this is an argument about the process, not the intent or the outcome even, why I think you can characterize the process as particularly opaque is the public came to learn about the deliberations principally through Oprah requests for public records. I know myself, I had to file for an Oprah request seeking insight into the communications between the Common Council and the ad hoc committee to understand over a 3-year period dating back to 2019 at least, how the conversation was being conducted. So that was just one example of how it was opaque, and we can't continue on that path if we reconsider it in 2022.
No, excuse me, that you had, excuse me, Ms. Little, you had your rebuttal time. That was it. Thank you. Okay. Anybody else commenting on this issue? Okay, moving along then. The next question goes to the Ward 1 candidates. And the question deals with, how do you plan to advocate for residents in relation to New Jersey Transit? Being that Summit is well known for its proximity to New York City via the Midtown Direct Line. Do you believe that there needs to be more awareness about what's happening to New Jersey Transit and how it impacts Summit? And Mr. Weck, you go first.
Thank you. That's a great question. While knocking on thousands of doors this campaign, that came up a lot. Our train station came up a lot. So speaking with the residents, one of the main reasons people look to move to Summit is the Midtown Direct. But with that said, residents are tired of the long delays, which is not unique to just Summit, and being late for work. And then on the flip side, getting home late and possibly missing sporting events with their kids or family events. Our station, unlike others in the area, it lacks cleanliness, a little bit of curb appeal, and definitely amenities inside. Many of the commuters that I spoke with stated that regardless of the weather, they will go right down to the platform rather than stay inside, even when it's heated, because of the condition of the inside. So I think as council members, we need to develop stronger relationships with transit and not just the surface level, but the senior members, because I really think that we have to be a voice for all these commuters that are using it, whether it's for work or pleasure. New York is coming alive again, and I think it's our duty as members of council member, and hopefully I can be that voice in coming fall. But I think we really need to be that voice for our residents.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Miniger.
Yes, so speaking of being a voice, I've commuted I don't right now. I commuted to South Orange. I commuted for about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years. And it ended around the time of the hurricane that absolutely decimated New Jersey Transit's ability to be on time. Mr. Weck and I are in agreement when it comes to the train station. I do think that could be cleaned up. We are very lucky to live in a community that has access to New York City like that. So I would love to represent Ward 1 as well as those people in our ward that are commuters by train.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to make a comment? Okay. Moving on to the next question. All of you will have the opportunity to answer this question. And the question asks, what do you want to accomplish if elected? And Mr. Fosgate, you go first.
Wow, great question. What do I want to accomplish if elected? I want to accomplish, protecting Summit for what it is, a great community in which to live, as well as, the small town charm, but also, with an eye toward measured growth. By measured growth, staying within the bounds of our master plan. I think there were some good things that happened this past year, including, arguably the planning board making a wise decision for respectfully denying the application of the Primrose School site and development there for, again, putting, less stress and threat to someone's well-being in that neighborhood for the site that it was. Broad Street West is obviously top of mind. And I want to make sure, not only do we focus on our downtown, but those other neighborhood business districts, around town as well, particularly on the west side and the east side. I mean, downtown gets a lot of attention as Summit Downtown Inc., but I think there's opportunities in those neighborhood business districts and nodes as well, to have a rising tide of downtown lift those boats and focus on, great retail businesses and a thriving community from edge to edge in Summit, New Jersey.
Thank you. Mr. Weck.
Thank you. It's a great question because Summit, like any community, is always changing. So if I'm elected, I want to have one or two, quite a few things to do. But some of the bigger ones what's Summit going to look like after we come out of the pandemic? Because I think, like mentioned earlier, everything's changed because of that. So that's one thing that I think we really need to focus on, and that obviously includes part of the redevelopment. The other one is we need to be fiscally responsible, and I think we need to look at our shared services. We have two great examples. One being we took the violations and also the court system. We have another one with the dispatch, but I think we need to re-examine that and kind of see, is it working? Are we hitting everything that we wanted to when we planned that years ago? We need to be a little stronger with the county. So I think everybody probably will agree that we still want to work hard with the county. We spend millions of dollars every year. Are we getting the services back for that? And then the last thing is, I definitely think Summit is a phenomenal place to work, live, and with that is because of the police department, among other things. And I think I've always said we have the best police department in not only the county, but in the state. And I think we have to continue to give them the tools and resources, along with the fire department and all the emergency services, to make sure that our residents are safe. And among that, the other thing I really want to do is I kind of want to forget the politics on this level. And I just want to work, whether elected or not elected, to continue to work with the residents, the elected officials, and the business owners to make Summit what it is. It's a great community.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Spur.
So I think that the three priorities that I would have in service on council, of course, just echoing what Bob just said, putting the Summit community ahead of partisan politics. I think on the local level, we're never well served by looking at a neighbor first and foremost as a Democrat or Republican. It doesn't do us well. It really, if anything, tears at the fabric of Summit. We're Hilltoppers first, and that's how we should, I think, look at each other, friends and neighbors, of course. Secondly, for me, is Broad Street West redevelopment. It's happening. I think David said that earlier. We just want to make sure it ends up in a place that complements rather than competes with our downtown. And more public engagement is going to be important there, getting the right stakeholders around the table throughout that entire process. Confident we can do it, and excited to be a part of that moving forward. And then third is, of course, continue to support our public safety agencies, police, fire, volunteer, first aid, continue to keep Summit the safe community it is that attracts residents of all ages from all over the country, and really, enjoy the ability to walk through the downtown, through our neighborhoods, feeling safe and secure. So those are my three priorities, and I look forward to working with, my running mates to accomplish that.
Thank you. Ms. Little.
Thank you. I've talked a little bit about some of the accomplishments we've already been working on and are still working on, and those will be my priorities going forward as well. And that is making sure the community comes out really strong from the pandemic, and that we continue to support our downtown businesses and all the businesses in Summit, as well as our residents. We've done, we've talked a little bit about some of the measures we took for the downtown, but I'd like to also say about some of the things we've done for the residents as well. We heard that mental health issues were really, people are struggling, and we worked to put in place a partnership with Bridgeways to increase the mental health counseling and services are available for our residents. And that takes a lot of pressure off the police department that deals with these, this same group of residents that are struggling like over and over again. So we're doing all these measures to both support residents and the public safety, as well as the redevelopment project, which we've talked about in length, and as well finally the construction of the new firehouse, which we desperately need. We have a very old, over 100-year-old fire department that really isn't meeting the needs, firehouse that isn't meeting the needs of a current growing Summit, and we're going to be bringing that project forward.
Thank you. Mr. Miniger.
Yes, so I believe that keeping residential taxes low is a very high priority, and that is done through the projects that we've all talked about here tonight. So Broad Street West redevelopment. I think that there's also ways to do so by finding efficiencies. So right now, a lot of our services are siloed. The data that is carried by these services is siloed. We could find efficiencies through technology. Speaking toward Mr. Weck's comment on shared services, specifically dispatch, I agree. We could also move that to the cloud. Getting that up in the cloud will allow another entity to take care of the data security portion of it, allowing us to not have to have, say, physical backups. That's a major step forward. It will save the city money. It'll make us all safer, make our data safer as well.
Thank you. Mr. Vartan.
Well, thank you. I talked a lot about what I would be focusing on in my opening statement, but it comes basically under the broad umbrella of building on our progress, right? Post-pandemic planning. So continuing to marshal our resources responsibly. We got a lot more CARES Act funding than a lot of other Union County towns. We used our American Rescue Plan funds responsibly. We have to keep Maple Street open for business, keep the vaccine clinic open for boosters, and as they become available for younger residents. That's category number one. Category number two is good government, right? Keep passing responsible budgets like this one. We have a little bit of a tax decrease coming this year. We have to build the new firehouse. We're right in the middle of this process, and we'll be voting at the next meeting on approving a bid. We have to keep adding sidewalks and stop signs, and this will increase pedestrian and traffic safety. And we have to give our first responders the things that they need. We've never, in the time that I've been on council, we've never denied a request from our police department for resources. And the third thing is expanding affordability, and that means moving forward with Broad Street, and we've talked a lot about that. So thank you.
Thank you. And that brings us to the third and final part of this evening's program, and that's the closing statements. You have 1 minute to do a closing statement, and Mr. Weck, you will be going first.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank all the fellow participants for tonight. But again, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting tonight's event. We all appreciate the opportunity to get our messages out, but more importantly, I'm sure the Summit community is grateful to have been given the chance to hear from each of the candidates as we share our past experience and thoughts for Summit's future. I really can't think of a better forum for our residents to learn about us and feel informed as the votes are cast this fall. As I mentioned in my opening statement, Summit and I have invested a lot in each other over the past 3 decades. I have a long-standing love for this city, and I've dedicated my career to protecting it and the people who live, work, and visit here. I've had a lot of experiences navigating all aspects of Summit's infrastructure, whether it's the neighborhood streets, the downtown, the schools, the offices in City Hall, the parks, or the city limits. I've always worked very hard to do what's best for Summit. I'm hopeful with your vote this fall to represent everyone in the city and continue to do what's best for Summit from my seat as a member of Common Council. I'd also like to ask you to keep the families and loved ones of all those lost on September 11th in your thoughts this coming Saturday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vartan.
Thank you to the League and to all the people who submitted questions and watched this evening. You heard from a lot of candidates tonight. You heard from one group who I think gave pretty vague answers about their vision for the city. They criticized and questioned decisions, calling for something different, but not necessarily going into the details of how it would be different. You also heard from Andy, Beth, and me about the ways we've dedicated ourselves to understanding the facts, seeking input, and then taking an informed position. We've clearly articulated what we will do and how we will do it. And it is that style of leadership that makes us the best choice for Summit, both today and tomorrow. It's been the honor of my life to serve this community that understands the power of our voice and the value of our vote. So please vote Vartan by mail, early in person, or on Election Day on November 2nd. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Fosgate.
Thank you. Again, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting tonight's forum, as well as the audience and my fellow candidates for participating and attending tonight. I'm running for council because I want my family and Summit's residents to live in a town whose leaders broadly represent the entire community. I also believe that people chose to live in this town so that they and their families could thrive without a lot of interference or inconvenience otherwise. I want our elected leaders, or any elected leaders, to uphold the guiding principle that they represent a community with a government and not a government with a community. And the community engagement should be the focus out of which Summit thrives and grows to be the great town that it can be and will be and always will be. I've also been told by others that I'm thoughtful, dependable, and engaging. What that means is I recognize what I don't know and I'm willing to learn from others. I believe in personal responsibility and leaning in to get a job done. And I also thrive from working with teams to achieve positive outcomes. The benefit to you is that you'll have a servant leader that will always listen to you and will hopefully make level-headed decisions. Thank you, and I welcome your vote and ask for your support.
Thank you. Mr. Miniger.
Thank you, Marlene. Thank you to the League of Women Voters. This has been a really great event. I've watched the past ones in person and on the web. So this virtual one is not too bad. I've met hundreds of neighbors as I've knocked on all the doors I could across Summit. The best part of a campaign is getting the opportunity to meet so many people and to listen to their ideas and their concerns. It helps you understand what really matters to them and to the future of Summit. Broad experience matters. Real world experience across many different areas in an organization matters. A career employing strategic long-term planning matters to a city's future. Organizational leadership skill matters as well. This is what I bring to the table. And if elected, I will bring my unique, fresh perspective to the Summit Council. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Little.
Thank you. And I want to thank the league too. This has been a really great opportunity to all talk about the issues. Almost every time I've ever come to one of these debates, you hear the phrase that there's no Republican or Democratic way to fix a pothole. And so I'm going to say it again, but I'm going to give it another twist because I think that's true. But there's a lot of other decisions that go into that pothole, and there are different ways of approaching how to fix the potholes. There's decisions about which streets you're going to fix the potholes on, how many potholes you're going to fix, how you're going to make the decisions that lead into fixing the potholes, and how you're going to make decisions to pay for them. And in those ways, you do see differences between the candidates. So I'm going to say that there, I hope you elect the candidates who are working hard and who've demonstrated that they take a very thoughtful approach to the issues, that they look at them carefully, that they listen to all the residents in town, that they do it without an agenda or other ambitions for other offices, and they're fully focused on Summit and helping the residents and making sure that all the residents' voices are heard and in the process. And so I feel that, I feel I've demonstrated that. I hope I've earned your trust. I hope I've earned your vote over the last 4 years and the decisions I've made. And I hope that you'll support Andy and Greg and I in the election on November 2nd.
Thank you. And Mr. Spur.
Thank you, Marlene. Yep. Thank you, Marlene, Marnita, Lisa, and the entire League of Women Voters team for hosting us today. It's been a real pleasure to share a bit about myself and, importantly, my vision for Summit. We're less than 60 days to this year's election, and Bob, David, Lisa, and I are hard at work. We've together knocked thousands of doors, are hosting events across town, and welcome comments, questions, suggestions from every corner of our community. You can reach us on Facebook, Instagram, our websites, and of course in person. When you see us around town, stop and say hello. We'd love to meet you and get to know you. It is our firm belief that we can always do better for Summit. We can especially build greater trust and confidence in our local government, not by attacking one another when disagreement inevitably arises, but rather by demonstrating a more collaborative path forward for our community. Over the coming weeks, we look forward to hearing from you, and by Tuesday, November 2nd, earning your trust, confidence, and vote. Thank you.
Thank you. And I wish to close by saying thank you to the candidates, to our timekeeper, to our tech director, and other league volunteers who put together this program. Thank you to the audience. And those who submitted questions to our email address. I want you to remember to make your vote count and to go vote. Early voting, first of all, vote by mail ballots should be going out starting September 18th. That's one of the reasons we decided we needed to do this debate early. Secondly, early voting begins on October 23rd. If you go to Union County Votes, you will find the locations and the times for the early voting. Not all towns have the polls. So there's only 7 towns in Union County that will do that. Union County Votes gives you those locations as well as the times. And it's through the weekend early voting. And of course, then November 2nd to vote at the polls at your regular polling places in town. Now, this forum has been recorded and it will be within 2 or 3 days available for viewing on the League of Women Voters website. That's LWVBHNPS.org. Please remember that the recording should be viewed in its entirety. And besides, I just want to point out that besides voting for governor, our state senator from the 21st congressional, for the 21st state legislative district, our state assembly people from the 21st legislative district, our Union County commissioners, our local Summit Common Council candidates. There are also 2 public questions on the ballot in November. One is dealing with permitting wagers on college sports or athletic events. In the past, you couldn't make a wager on any New Jersey team that was playing or any teams that were playing in New Jersey, and they want to change that. So that's question number 1. And public question number 2 deals with the fact that in the past, veterans and senior citizen groups could use games of chance, bingo, raffles, in order to support the group's operating budget, whereas other groups could do bingo or raffles, but it was limited to a particular purpose. The proceeds had to go to a particular purpose. This public question would say that all groups now would be able to conduct games of chance to use their proceeds to help the group in the operating budget as well. So again, thank you to the candidates and have a good evening.